Hello everyone. My voice is still not quite up to snuff, so I decided to go through with an idea I had a while ago. I've ranked the Danganronpa characters every which way that makes sense. Over the streams and the multiple videos, there's like nothing left, right? Well, that is before AI came along. I asked an AI to give me 10 topics to rank the Danganronpa characters by, and we're going to use those 10 topics to determine their skills. For each time a character gets S tier, or the top of the list here, they get 5 points. D tier is worth 1, and you can sort of understand how the rest will go. Our point here is to prove which is the most well-rounded ultimates. Because sure, you might be the best fighter, and that might make you the most useful in some cases. But what about real-world situations? Which of these is the most well-adjusted, powerful character? And our first topic today, that was generated by the AI, is how well would this character do in a cooking competition? And this is interesting because other than one character, I'm only doing the main casts because I haven't got all the way through the anime, and some of these don't apply to the children, and I don't know any of the characters from the mangas. So we're just doing the main cast from the games. I know it's all mixed in here. But there's only one person who absolutely would win the cooking competition, and that's Terror, obviously. And now we have to kind of just decide how good these people's cooking skills are. And I might be missing some information. I'm sure you guys will let me know in chat, the comment section. You always do. But I'm going mostly on vibes here, all right? Unless I can remember a specific instance of someone cooking, the Danganronpa characters generally don't cook. Because they just get the food on a silver platter from Monokuma. So it's mostly vibes work. And starting with Nekomaru, I'm not getting very good vibes. I feel like Nekomaru does not have well, maybe he has the patience for cooking, but I don't know if he has the brain for it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think his mind is set up to follow the recipe to a T and then wait the appropriate amount of time and not try to take shortcuts or experiment. And I feel like that makes him unworthy to compete. Celeste, I feel like, is a quite good cook. But she's probably not very well practiced because she gets other people to do it for her. So she knows how cooking is done. She strikes me as someone who, well, she was a scrappy sort of like, before she got her whole like gambling money through luck. Of course, the cat is here, as always. All right. Like I was saying, Celeste grew up poor, so there's the potential that she might have cooked for herself quite a lot. But maybe she hasn't recently, and I just get the vibe that she has someone like Hifumi outside of the killing game scenario, right? So I feel like maybe she's out of practice. Maybe that's dramatic second place send-off. That sounds right? Like, her cooking is good, but not, like, as good as it would need to be to win. Kaido also strikes me as a disaster, but he's surprised me before. He's shockingly capable for the attitude he puts off. So I think he might get accepted. Maybe he forged the documents to get into the cooking competition. But I do think he'd be the first to go. I feel like he'd get either too distracted by something else that's going on, or he'd just not be... He'd just serve something stupid. Now, Aoi's a bit weird. Because she says she wants to learn baking at the end of the first game, right? And I know this is a cooking competition, but that's more than a lot of characters. So, you know what? I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and put her in the middle of the pack. She says she wants to learn it. Let's assume she did. Taka is a perfectionist. Does that make him better or worse at cooking? Because cooking is something that you kind of have to do through, like, just knowing, right? You have to kind of just guess. It's a lot of guesswork. Sure, there's a recipe that tells you how much to put in, but sometimes an oven is different, or you have to, make a last-minute change because you don't have a certain ingredient, especially in a cooking show. which is basically what I'm basing this off of, as you can see with the second place dramatic send-off. Not like a small town fair cooking competition, like a cooking show, because that's more fun. And so I think Taka, while probably able to get on the competition by setting something up beforehand, would quickly fold to the pressure. That sounds about right. Himiko, she would be too lazy. Tsumugi makes cocktails. Does that extend into cooking? I'll put her in middle of the pack. I feel like she definitely knows more about that than someone like Kaido, probably, or Himiko. Just from working at a bar that assumedly, and maybe that isn't even real, but we're going to assume that the V3 characters' backstories are real, okay? Because otherwise we've got no information to go off of. Assuming what Tsumugi tells us is real and she actually worked in a bar, if it's a bar that served food, maybe she has some experience in that sense. Tsumugi also strikes me as, being as normal as she strikes me as one of the characters that actually might have to cook for herself every now and again. So I'll put her in the middle of the pack. That's fair, I think. Gundam... Honestly, I think Gundam's a sleeper pick here. Because no, I think he'd refuse. I don't know if Gundam's a vegetarian, but he strikes me as someone who might, and they'd ask him to cook a meat dish, and he would refuse. So, I'll put him in not worthy to compete is kind of rude. I'll put him in first to go, as in, like, he might be qualified to cook. He seems like the type, like, he's like kind of a, I don't know how to say it other than like male wife. You know what I mean? Like, that's his relationship with Sonya. It's like he acts all tough, but she's actually the tough one. And he strikes me as sort of a person who might have just had to cook for himself and his animals, right? Or at least prepare food for his animals. Especially if he doesn't eat meat, that would extend into, like, you know, vegetarian food. But I think he'd have some serious qualms with the competition and would leave. That makes sense to me. Sakura makes tea. I don't think that really extends into a cooking competition, though. Kyoko, definitely not. The closest thing she's ever done to cooking is have pot noodles land on her head. That's probably not true. I mean, she's probably cooked once before, but not on the level of a cooking show. I'm sure she had... Well, her grandpa probably wouldn't cook for her, right? Because he sucks so bad. So maybe she would have to cook for herself? I don't know. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. Hyoko would just whine until somebody cooked for her, so I don't think she's particularly skilled at it. I'm just going to put Toko and Genocide Jack as the same ranking. We're going to consider them as the same person, because it doesn't really make sense otherwise. So we'll get back to that later. Rantaro definitely strikes me as someone who knows how to cook. He's got a lot of siblings, right? Or at least he had one sibling that he cared about very much. And it seems like his parents are a little bit, like, distracted or out of the picture, because he's the one who's searching for the kid. I think I'll put him in dramatic second place send-off. He's definitely not, like, he doesn't strike me as someone who's a top chef, but an experienced one. Anyway, Kirimi would win. We all know that. Far more experienced than anyone. Junko could win. The question is, would she care? I mean, I guess maybe if it caused the other competitors despair, you know what I mean, to win. But she also values her own despair of losing. I'm going to put her in dramatic second place send-off. That sounds about right. Because she's defeated a bunch of people and seen their despair, and then she fails at the last second, which is what she likes to do. Peko! Now, she's an assassin who considers herself a tool, but she's also kind of a butler, like, or a maid, I guess, in this case. Like, she's like Fuyuhiko's assistant, who's always around him. So I feel like she's more experienced than some other people. Akane works in a restaurant, I think. Or at least something like a restaurant. But I don't think she cooks there. And she likes to eat, but she doesn't really have the resources, I don't think, to learn to cook very much. You know what I mean? So I think I'd probably put her there, unfortunately. Now, Maki was like the caretaker of an entire orphanage. I'm going to assume she knows how to cook at least somewhat. How dramatic for Maki. I'm going to put her here. She probably hasn't done it for a while. She's out of practice. But she's definitely better off than, like, Kaido. Chihiro does not strike me as someone who knows how to cook. Makoto doesn't either. Does his luck carry him at least to the middle of the pack? I'll put him in first to go. It seems like he might be able to luck into some of it, but I don't know about anything about that. Togami's weird because he could either be, like, incapable of cooking because people have always cooked for him, or he could have just, like, decided he wanted to learn it one day and become proficient at it. So I think I'll give him the same benefit of the doubt as Makoto, that he's at least maybe a little bit experienced, but, like, probably vastly. Whereas Makoto's like, I shouldn't be here. How did I end up in this situation? And then loses. Byakuya's like, I'm clearly the most skilled here, so I'm clearly going to win. And then he doesn't try hard enough or pay enough attention and loses. Mikan, I mean, she'd just fall over and that'd be it. I don't think she's incapable of cooking, though, because she's kind of, like, pushed around as, like, a slave, it seems like, for her family. So I do imagine that she's probably had to cook for people before. Anyway, enough of that. Wow, there's a lot of characters that I'm not doing in the next, like, 3 things. Mukuro. Okay, I'm just going to move some characters up here so we don't have to go down there every time. It's quite annoying, but give me 1 second. Get Monami out of here. I'm also not ranking the bears because, like, Monokuma's the best cook, but he's also not applicable for some of these categories. Okay, that's enough for quite a while. Mukuro is kind of the same as Junko, but she's probably had to cook for herself a lot more than Junko. You know what I mean? Because she lived, like, in a mercenary group. But I don't think her cooking, like, her analytical skills are quite as proficient as Junko's. So I don't think she's necessarily going to just win on that. I'll put her in first to go. I think that makes the most sense. She's probably got some experience, which is like most of these people, but it was probably not in, like, a formal setting. You know what I mean? Mahiru is definitely a homemaker type, so cooking is probably in her repertoire. I don't know if I'd put her on the same level, godlike level as Teru and Kurumi, though. So maybe I'll put her on the same level as Rantaro, because I'm kind of arguing the same thing for them. Also, I just realized Maki could also go into this section, but the reason I'm putting her lower is she probably was cooking for a lot of people. Very simple meals. That's what it seems like. Rantaro was cooking for, like, his siblings, not like a whole orphanage. And Mahiru would be cooking for her family, which is a lot more of a close-knit circle. And Celeste is cooking for her own extremely high standards. Angie, I mean, she lived on a deserted island, so she must have cooked something, right? No, we'll put her in first to go. Her attitude or her bizarre choice of dish would probably get her axed. You will not convince me Kazuichi knows how to cook, but maybe he does. Kazuichi's kind of an enigma that way. Shuichi, I don't think so. I mean, he lived with, like, his uncle, right? So, like, the single parent sort of situation, there's a chance he had to cook for himself, but I'm imagining it wasn't anything extravagant. Tanko, no. I don't think so. Kiba doesn't eat, but he might know how to like, that might be programmed into him, an ability to cook. No, but he sucks ass at everything else, so I'm putting him in not worthy to compete. Leon definitely has not given cooking a second thought. Gonta lived in the wild, but he isn't like Angie, where he was, like, eating probably, like, safe food, as we consider it. He was probably eating raw meat. Chiaki has probably played every cooking simulator. Does that translate to real life? Not really, but I'll give her more than inadequacy. Ryoma's kind of tough. Because, like, in prison, he obviously didn't cook for himself. But before that, he was kind of like a family man. You know what I mean? As much as a 17-year-old could have been a family man, like, 3 years ago. So he's, like, 14. Yeah, I'm going to give him not worthy. Never mind. I take it back. Kokichi could lie his way into the competition. It's sort of similar as Kaido, so I'll give them the same place. Korekio, he's probably got some crazy knowledge of many different cultures' food. Does he know how to make it, though? I'm putting him in middle of the pack. I feel like his potential knowledge might lead him to, like, sort of shock the judges in the first round, and they'd be like, wow, this is so impressive. But the second time, they'd be like, okay, no, it's just shocking, and it's not actually that good. You know what I mean? So let's get some more people. Be you. Ooh. I looked at Haiji Toa for 3 seconds. My day's been ruined. Tsugami, Nagito, Sonia. There's not that many left, so I'm just trying to find them all. Oh, they're all down here. What the heck are you guys doing down here? You got names at the end of the alphabet? What the heck? Okay. Miyu. No way. There's no way. She's instant noodles forever. Kaede? Does the piano freak know how to cook? I honestly don't think so. I'm going to be honest. I don't think she does. It's similar to Shuichi. Like, they're kind of sheltered. So, like, you think maybe they had to cook for themselves sometimes. But, again, it was probably nothing too complicated. I don't think they were trying to, like, impress anyone. Which is kind of why Mikon's up here. Tugami. Now, Tugami loves food. He's kind of a gourmet. But does he make it himself? I'll put him middle of the pack. That seems fair. I have to imagine he knows how to make some things. Because he's not actually, like, rich like Byakuya, right? He's an imposter. So, surely he's skilled. Maybe in the anime, we learn more about his skill with cooking. But as it stands, I'm only confident in putting him in the middle of the pack. Hajime, probably instant noodles for life. Nagito instantly wins through his luck if he wants to. Honestly, Nagito and Junko are kind of in the same spot for, like, yeah, their talents could make them infinitely powerful at cooking, but their personalities could make them lose. So it feels like dramatic second place send-off makes sense. Toko is bottom tier even before we consider Genocide Jack, which would clearly be a distraction, especially in a kitchen with a lot of pepper around. Not a good look for Toko. Yasuhiro doesn't know how to cook anything. Well, he does have that scene with a burger in it. Does that mean he's good at cooking? I'm going to say no. Mondo doesn't strike me as particularly skilled at cooking. Yeah, no. I don't think there's anything too crazy there. Sonia is interesting. Because ironically, I feel like she might have, because of her, like, obsession with Japan, she might have learned how to cook Japanese food. So that she could have, like, a dinner like she saw on the show she was watching, right? But I think, logically, she would get servants to do that for her, probably, right? So I'm putting her at the bottom. There's no plausible deniability like with Byakuya, where he might have just decided to do it himself. I feel like Sonia would have just tasked a servant to do it. Now, Hifumi is whipped into shape by Celeste and learns how to make some things in the kitchen, at least milk tea, if nothing else. But I'm sure she got him to cook for her at least once, right? Maybe she doesn't trust him that much. I don't know. If he's on his own, he's definitely just eating cheap ramen noodle type stuff. Quick meals. So, that makes sense. I don't think Fuyuhiko cooks. I don't buy it. Is there only 2 left? Is it just Ibuki and Sayaka? I haven't missed anyone, have I? Well, I guess we could rank Izuru. Yeah, okay. Ibuki? Nah. Nah. Sayaka does live... Okay, well, when she's on tour, she would have people to make food for her. But before she was famous, she used to spend a lot of time alone, right? That's her backstory? So that logically would mean she probably cooked for herself, too. I'm putting her in first to go. It seems only fair. We have no idea if she had to do that. And even if she did, it was quite a while ago, so she might not be particularly up on her skills. And then Izuru is the best at everything, so he just wins. So that is the cooking tier list. How long did that take? 22 minutes? We'll do one more. All right, so I spun the wheel, and the AI topic that it chose was most likely to win in a game show. So that's what we're doing. So these are the topics that I chose. I based this off of like popular game shows. So, you know, you risk everything and win the bonus round. You actually win the main game. You get close to the end. You fail pretty early on, or you fail the aptitude test to even appear on the program. This is based on more general knowledge than extreme intelligence. But that doesn't mean that intelligent characters aren't going to top this list. Let's start with Celeste. Honestly, she is an intelligent character, but I don't feel like her trivia knowledge is that great. So I feel like she could logic out some of the early answers, but I don't know if she'd know the more complex answers near the end. Nekomaru certainly not. Kaido is sort of an interesting choice, because he's supposed to be worldly, right? Does that mean he knows game show trivia? Maybe not. I'm going to assume that Kaido can beat any test, which is kind of cheating, but oh well, Junko does the same thing. So it's just their established characterization. Aoi is not going to make it, I'm afraid. Taka, I don't think Taka would win. One, because the pressure would get to him, and two, because his knowledge is more... he's not very street smart, let's say. So if he got a celebrity question or a sports question, he might be screwed. But I feel like his relative intelligence, just like Celeste, will carry him some of the ways. And he certainly has more knowledge than she does. Of just, you know, more things. She's very narrowly focused on her vampire fantasy. But I don't think he'd win. Next is Himiko. Himiko has, like, niche knowledge, but I don't think it's enough to actually get on the game show. Tsumugi is interesting. She's got a lot of, like, media knowledge. She's, like, the opposite of Taka, kind of. She's cool-headed and has a lot of, like, pop culture knowledge, but she doesn't have very much... like history or science knowledge, I'd assume. Maybe she was the one that designed all those robots, but we don't know. I'm going to put her here and be charitable to her pop culture knowledge that might be able to get her through some things. Gundam knows some biology. I don't think he'd make it. Sakura, same thing. Kyoko, that's interesting because she's another intelligent character, but I don't know if she's very. I don't know how wide her knowledge base is. I assume from doing detective work that she might have picked up a few things. So I'm putting her on the same level as Taka because she's definitely not as, like... She's not as high on the scale of, like, super intelligent. Or, like, at least in the terms of a game show. But she's cool-headed. So I feel like she's got that advantage that puts her on the same level as him. Hyoko would not. Rantaro does seem like he has a bunch of niche knowledge. Rantaro seems like he has a lot of niche knowledge. And again, that might just be because he's sort of mysterious. But we know he traveled the world. And yeah, he strikes me as a person who knows some street smarts type things. Pop culture. And he's worldly, so he might know some of the history things that someone like Kyoko might miss. But I don't think he's like a mega winner. Kirumi is kind of on the same level. Again, I don't think she's a mega winner, but being a government official means you do have to know quite a wide range of things, at least if you're trying to be a good one, like she is. And she served a bunch of different people all over the place, assumedly. So I have a feeling that she'd be able to at least logic her way to the top. You know what I mean? With her knowledge base. Now, Junko could just guess and win. She's kind of a perpetual second placer. Kind of. How do I do this? It depends on her motivation, right? That's the biggest thing. I think maybe it gets close to the end. I don't think Junko can, like, almost ever win. That's, like, part of her whole thing. She can get very close, but never quite win. And in this case, that is mid-tier this time. Peko. She's got a lot of specific knowledge, but not a lot of wide-ranging knowledge. Kane's kind of in a similar situation. Maki, too, in a similar situation. Chihiro at least has pop culture and technology, I'd assume. I'm going to give Chihiro the benefit of the doubt here because they spend like all day in front of a screen in their room. I'm going to assume that they like are the kind of person to just look a random thought up. You know what I mean? That's, you know, like a random question. So I assume they have a wider knowledge base because of curiosity more than anything else. Makoto is very bland, but that gives him a unique sort of everyman knowing a lot of things, perhaps. But I don't really buy that as much with Makoto as I do Hajime, so we'll see. Byakuya is the mega winner. He's not only privileged in the sense that he has access to way more information than pretty much anybody else in the cast, but he's the kind of person who seeks that stuff out. Like, we learned that on a whim he just looked through obscure serial killers. Well, I guess Genocide Jack isn't obscure, but he was going through all these serial killers just because he wanted to learn about it. Byakuya is definitely the kind of character who could beat a game show, which is very annoying because he's like the only character who doesn't need the money. I guess Sonya doesn't either, but she's like exiled from her country, presumably, so she kind of does. I don't know. Izuru as well could be a mega winner. Izuru is going to be on these lists. We're kind of discounting him, though, because he just wins at everything. That's kind of unfair. Mikan has knowledge of biology, maybe some other sciences, maybe some other random areas that she had to learn the hard way by being forced to do them, but I don't think it's anything serious. You know what I mean? And now we got the anime block again. Mukuro. No way. Mukuro is supposed to be the jock sister, right? And you can kind of see that in the way they position her as having very specific knowledge when it comes to fighting and like nothing else. Oh, that was kind of nice. They were all in a row. Hold on. Last time there were only like 5 characters left after I grabbed everybody. So I'm just going to grab everybody this time. And we'll be good to go for the rest of the list. Hopefully I don't miss anybody, or else I'm in big trouble later when I try to tally these all up. I think that's everybody. Let me just do a double check. Yeah, okay, we're good. Angie would not succeed. Honestly, I don't think Kokichi could even lie his way into this one, which means that maybe Kaito's forged documents explanation is kind of also not going to work in this case. Because these are like hard and fast test questions. I guess Kaito became an astronaut by getting handed the answers, right? Or a fake ID anyway. I think there was something about him, Shuichi being like, did you pass the test on your own? Kaito being like, oh, yeah, totally. I don't know. Kaito definitely seems like he's a little bit more intelligent than Kokichi in terms of like, I guess it's more wisdom than intelligence. It's just like knowing things. So I think I'm gonna leave it the way it is. Even if his stories of world travel are false, at least he knows some science from working at the space program and had to look up a bunch of bullshit in order to spin those stories. So Tenko, very specific knowledge. Shuichi, it's a similar argument to Kyoko. I have a feeling as a detective, you just pick up some stuff that you wouldn't otherwise know because it's just applicable to that case. So I think that's fair. Leon is another case of specific knowledge. Mondo as well. Sayaka, no. Tera, no. Sonia is interesting because her like princess prep classes actually make her kind of smart. At least wise. We'll say wise. She learned a lot of history. She learned multiple languages, which sometimes a question on a game show is just, what does this word mean? And she's definitely up on pop culture in Japan, where she'd probably be, at least if all of these characters are competing in a game show, where she'd be competing in the game show. So honestly, I feel like she could be a winner. She's got a well-rounded knowledge base for exactly this sort of thing. I should preface, though, while assuming this is a Japanese game show, not one of the ones where you like, not like a Wipeout-esque game show. I'm talking more like Wheel of Fortune and, that kind of stuff. Yasuhiro has some very specific knowledge. Maybe you think I'm an idiot for putting him up here, but he's definitely a more down-to-earth, worldly character than a lot of these other people who are kind of above it all. So I feel like he's got at least as much knowledge as Kaito does when it comes to some things, but I do not think he's like going really far. Nagito could win through luck, but he's also kind of... Nagito's luck would be that he'd lose in the mega round and then all the money would be lost anyway, right? Oh, just my luck. And instead it would go to like somebody who actually needed it. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like while Nagito you could make the argument he's just being carried by luck, and he probably partially is. I feel like he is somewhat knowledgeable on some obscure things. Like in the final death room, I feel like he kind of shows some of that knowledge. Anyway. Shockingly, I don't think Miu is bottom tier here. I think Miu knows a lot about engineering, a fair enough bit about pop culture, like enough to make references. And yeah, she strikes me as the type to just randomly look stuff up if she thinks about it. You know what I mean? Fujiko? Does his gangster training give him any help here? Probably not. Ibuki, probably not. Imposter is an interesting one for this specific category. Because imposter has to know a lot about certain people, which means knowing about their backgrounds, which means learning a bunch of stuff. And even if he's just learning about Byakuya's background, I feel like that's at least like 50% of Byakuya's power, right? Like, I have to be able to carry myself in such a way that I'm super knowledgeable, so maybe I should be super knowledgeable on a few things. I don't want to put him like super close to Byakuya, definitely not on the same level, because obviously he hasn't had as much time as Byakuya to acquire quite as much information as he has. But Togami has probably learned a lot. It's the same thing as the detective argument, but in reverse. Hifumi has pop culture, but that's about it. Hajime... Now, this is what I was talking about with the Makoto everyman theory. So if Makoto's like an everyman who knows a little bit about everything, maybe he'd be like kind of okay at a game show? Hajime studied intensely and paid a lot of money, but studied intensely to get into Hope's Peak Academy, right? Or do you just have to pay money? I feel like there's an entrance exam still, isn't there? Maybe not. He wants to be an ultimate student, though, so I feel like his knowledge base is at least wider than Makoto's. I don't know if he'd go super far, but that's my argument. Again, Korekiyo has studied a lot of cultures and lived kind of... what would you say? On the road? Sort of. So he at least has the same down-to-earth quality as... Yasuhiro, I forgot his name for a second, I don't know how, where they just like probably know a bunch of random stuff that might appear in a game show. But do we want to go higher than that for his specific knowledge of history and culture? I think so. I think that's fair. History is a big thing in game shows, so that seems fair to me. Chiaki knows about games and maybe has learned a bunch of random trivia in games. She's probably knows about as much random trivia as I do, but like has played way more games than I have. So I think I'll put her here, and that's fair. I don't think I would be able to like even be scouted to appear on a game show. But I think if you took my knowledge and like doubled it by having played like every game ever and like just encountering random situations that you don't have to figure out and then you learn things about them, maybe. Ryoma does not strike me as a particularly wise. Well, he's wise in terms of like proverbial stuff, but not in terms of like trivia. Gonta definitely not. If we consider Kibo with the antenna, he's literally like a Twitch chat looking up the answers while playing against a streamer. I don't know if we want to consider that, though, because I don't think a game show would allow that. On his own, he's kind of like a Pinocchio, I'm a real boy, right? So he doesn't know too much about the world. Yeah, we'll go with that. Kazuichi is a closeted nerd. So I feel like he has the potential to have great knowledge. Plus, he knows about engineering and mechanics, which is a decent sector of knowledge. Perhaps. He knows about old bikes. Maybe that'll come up. But he feels fairly in touch with pop culture as well. I feel like that's fair for him. Mahiru. No. Kaede definitely... Well, she'd know about, like... Sometimes musician... Like, music stuff definitely pops up on there. But just like Ibuki, like, that's not going to get you far enough. You have to have at least 2 domains of knowledge to get onto the game show. That's my determination. Is that it? Okay, that's it. Oh, Toko. We never ranked Toko. Toko's a writer. And that's often forgotten when it comes to her character. But she is a novelist, which for writing a book, generally, you do have to look up a bunch of stuff because you're, to make it accurate to what you're trying to portray. If she also reads a lot, which I feel like she does, because she spends a lot of her time alone, then she's got the domains of knowledge from that, and also from being a murderer, which certainly gives you some knowledge of the human body. So, like, biology, that's at least 2 domains. I feel like maybe Chihiro needs to move down. Because Chihiro's 2 domains are pop culture and, like, coding, computer study. So that makes a lot of sense to me. That looks about right. Okay. With those 2 done, there are 8 more tests remaining for the Danganronpa cast. Who will come out on top other than Izuru? I mean, he's always going to come out on top, but we're going to consider who comes out on top, like, after him, who gets second place. You could probably tally up the scores in your brain right now, what each character has. But until next time, this has been fun. Like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about this series. Maybe should I do it for a different games cast of characters after this one? Let me know. Okay, bye.